Hey guys, welcome to the Evil Geniuses Bleed Blue podcast. This is the podcast where I talk about pretty much everything Evil Geniuses. And yeah, actually, lots of things to talk about once again this week. Never stops being a news. There's never a slow week when it comes to this organization. Um, and actually this week, a lot of the esports actually there's things going on. Lots of important things happening. Um, and yeah, so just really looking forward to getting into it. We've got the LCS beginning for League of Legends. Dota 2, we have some big news about the major coming up in LIMA, which, yeah, going to be pretty cool. Some big news regarding the Rocket League team, and unfortunately, the last bit of news on the Rocket League team. And then going into Valorant, we actually have a decent amount of news. And then we're going to get into the Counter Strike section where I'm going to hop on with Kurrent, and we're going to talk about some of the results that happened at Blast Spring Groups, and a couple of other things as well. So yeah, lots to talk about. And so let's without further ado, let's jump straight into things. So League of Legends. League of Legends. Week one of the LCS. I was very excited for week one of the LCS. Um, in particular. I very excited about this roster. I think this roster is extremely talented. I think this roster is probably should be fighting for the top spot in the LCS. And I think, without boasting a little too hard, I think they definitely um, are probably should be the best team in the LCS this season. At least, before we know how good some of these other rosters are, right? Like we don't know. We think FlyQuest is going to be really good. They have a very incredible lineup, but we just don't know how good they're actually going to be. But they have an incredible lineup. So FlyQuest is one to look out for. Team Liquid is running the Korean player project, which, if it works out, could be insane. They have a lot of talent on that roster, and with them all being Korean, maybe they'll kind of bring in that Korean culture to their game in the sense of not only the way they play but the way they practice, and hopefully that motivates other teams to start implementing those things, to see them working hard and to emulate that. But we'll see. They didn't get off to a great start this week, but they're still a team to look out for. If they could figure things out, they will be a very strong team. Probably competing for that top spot. The only other team really that I think is like competing for the top spot in the LCS is probably Cloud9 because of what they did last year and the fact that this year they look pretty solid. I'd say Cloud9 is probably contending for that spot as well. Yeah, personally, I don't really believe in 100 Thieves. I just think Bjergsen and Doublelift are washed as fuck. And I not only would it be bad for the LCS if they won, because it would just show like, wow, dude, Doublelift can literally come out of retirement and still win the LCS. But on top of that, it's just, yeah, I don't like 100 Thieves. I don't like Bjergsen and Doublelift. I think they're washed players. I just don't think that roster is going to do anything. So I really see now. Granted, the overall level of the LCS has definitely gone up. Like 100 Thieves roster, don't get me wrong. I don't think they're going to be the number one spot in the LCS by the end of the season, but I do think they're a good team. Um, I think EG is obviously a good team. FlyQuest, Cloud9, those are great teams. CLG is not bad, as we'll get to in a second. Evil Genius played CLG and lost, which we'll talk about. But CLG is a good roster. They haven't changed their roster from last year, but they're a very solid roster that was coming on the up and up last season, and is looking to get even stronger into this season, into the spring split. And they're a solid team. I would say, let's see here, it gets a little bit trickier after that. I think um, Dignitas ain't bad. They got perks, or not perks. Jensen. I think Dignitas have Jensen, if I remember correctly. So that's always going to be a roster you got to look out for. Golden Guardians, I didn't really think much of, but they actually played pretty well this week, even though they lost to EG. They almost came back and won. Look, the overall level in the LCS, I mean, TSM, for goodness sake, is 2-0 somehow. The level of the LCS has definitely gone up this season, the split. Um, and so it'll be actually pretty entertaining to watch. It's not going to be like the previous splits where you watch and you're just kind of like, I don't even care about these teams. Like, why would I watch these two teams play? Like, no, there's actually some interesting stuff going on in the LCS. which is cool. I miss Dash not being on the desk. I think that's a big hit to the broadcast. You can just tell, just from watching that. You know, last split, you get so used to having Dash that when you don't have him, it just feels so empty on the broadcast. I don't want to like push it, and say that that the other analysts and whatnot are bad. It's not that at all. It's just Dash just brings so much value to a broadcast that losing him, you can feel it when you watch. But I do like that they brought Vulcan, for example, on to do a TriCast. I thought that was cool. And he did some analysis work, as well as bringing in some other players, I think, on Friday as well. So just, yeah, really, really cool that they're doing that. I really appreciate that. I think that's a great decision to make. And yeah, overall, just you know, let's kind of get into the games a little bit. So, EG had two games. They played on Thursday and they played on Friday. And on Thursday, they played Golden Guardians, and Golden Guardians is not a team that EG should even be remotely close to losing to. And at first, it looked very good for EG. They were up quite a bit. They got off to a great start early. JoJo was throwing, which is the reason we almost lost this game. Golden Guardians started to make a rally at the end of the game. Started taking some dragons, getting a Baron I think as well. It was getting pretty scary, but EG ended up pulling it off and holding off till the end. And yeah, JoJo was pretty much throwing. I don't know what else to say about that game. I mean, I think everyone else played relatively well. I think JoJo just kind of inted the amount of times he was caught off out of position or made a stupid play. Uh, yeah, it was just not a great game for him, and he acknowledged it and he was joking about it, and all the players were too, Vulcan especially. So I think after that first game, I was like, okay, they made some mistakes, they almost lost, but they won. Hopefully, going into tomorrow, we don't make those same mistakes. Well, we play CLG. CLG they're no slouches. They're a team that you can lose to. And what happens? Well, EG gets off to a great start again, and EG's Twitter is popping off. They're like, "Oh, we're cooking these guys. These guys are trash. EG or CLG ain't cooking shit." And all of a sudden, what happens? CLG scales really well. They have like a very good scaling comp, um, and end up just making a massive comeback into the game and winning. So EG kind of dropping the ball there. I didn't get to watch really too much of the CLG game, but I was keeping tabs with it. So I know that they got off to an early lead and it fell away from them. And I saw people mentioning about the scaling and whatnot. What am I to take from this? It's a rough first week. It's a rough first week. Could have been worse. Could have been better. Um, yeah, just goes to show we have room to improve. Um, this roster has much to improve upon. I don't think JoJo has had this much focus on him as a main focal point that needs to consistently perform. I think last split he was very good, but a lot of the resources were directed towards Impact and at the time Danny as well. And so now that that's some of that might be now starting to get funneled toward JoJo a little bit more this season. I think that's going to be something that he's going to have to be a little bit more cognizant of and play a more better, more consistently than he has been. So that's something to look out for as the weeks progress. Um, when we get later into the spring split. Um, as for this coming up week, on Thursday they're going to play TSM, who is 2-0, like I mentioned. Look, they should beat TSM. Listen, EG should beat most of these teams. The only teams that I am going to see them play against and be like, well, shit, they might lose this. Again, FlyQuest, Cloud9, Team Liquid, and maybe 100 Thieves. Other than that, they should pretty much beat everybody else, or at least should be. I don't want to say heavy favorites, but significant favorites over every other team they play, in my opinion. Again, these teams are stronger. They're not throwaway teams. If you lose to them, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like you lose to CLG, that's not a horrible loss, but it's definitely you were definitely the favorite. So, um, yeah, and then Friday they play against Dignitas again. I think that's the lineup with Jensen. So not a lineup to sleep on either. Um, but we'll see how those games go. Um, they're not really going to have any big matchups. I don't think until the following week. Yeah, the following week they play FlyQuest on February 9th, that Thursday, and then they play Cloud9 on Friday. So we really kind of need to get these wins, so that going into that following early February, or I guess around the 9th and the 10th of February, that week, want to build up a little bit of a cushion so that that's not really a problem, you know, so that we don't fall into that, um, potentially losing both games there, right? Obviously, I hope we would win one of those games, but or both, but it's definitely a difficult schedule for that week. So hopefully we can get these wins under our belt so that we can gain some confidence going into that February 9th, February 10th week. Um, but yeah, overall, shaky start. Shaky start. Much to improve on, but I look, the spring split is a journey. Where you finish at the end of the spring split does not determine how well you will play in the playoffs. If there's one thing I've learned about League of Legends, anything can happen once the playoffs begin. Um, you know, we went from last season, or not last season, but last year, last year's spring split. We were not looking that great going into the spring playoffs, and we won the whole thing in dominant fashion. Anything can happen, right? The following split, we almost lost to CLG. We almost lost to, I believe, Team Liquid. It was either Team Liquid or TSM. I think it was TSM actually. Um, Look, anything can happen. You can win some games and lose some games. You could end up being a fourth seed going into the playoffs, and you can win the whole thing. Now, genuinely, it shows a lot more. You're more likely to do well if you do well in the split. But sometimes it kind of just depends on your form at the end of the split. If you have a rough first half of the split, but you start picking it up at the end, your stock's going to be a little bit higher going into the playoffs. If you start off really well and you taper off towards the end of the split, like we did in summer split, um, yeah, it's not as you're not as convincing. You may not do that well in the playoffs. So really, I'm not super worried about their form for the first half of the split. I think they're going to be good, but if they end up being fourth, yeah, that's a disappointment after the first half of the split. That's disappointing, but I'm not worried that they can't climb back to number one or that they can't win the whole spring split still. Um, I'm not a very emotional person when it comes to that kind of thing. Um, it's a decent season. It's a decent split, with many games, and we'll see kind of where they're at. And it's what's important is, are we able to see improvement in their game and their decision making, in JoJo's performances, and in how FBI and Someday are getting integrated into the team. I think that's what's important. Not necessarily their actual record. What's more important is seeing that progression and that growth, and that gaining of that improvement upon their chemistry. That's what's important. So and JoJo's development. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'm not worried about Inspired. I think he's going to be fine. I think Vulcan's going to be fine too. Now that we have FBI, who's a much more stronger laner, in that ADC lane, and is also just he just seems to be an upgrade from that in that position. So yeah, I think a lot of this is going to come down to not even really Someday. It really does come down to JoJo. How is JoJo going to perform? I think he's going to be the one who really determines where EG ends up by the end of the split, and overall the end of the year. Um, which I know is a lot of pressure to put on him, but I feel confident in everybody else, right? I don't really see Vulcan making so many mistakes that he's horrible. He's never been horrible. He's usually a pretty consistently strong player. Inspired is going to be phenomenal. I have no doubts about Inspired. FBI I think is going to be pretty damn good. I don't really have many questions about him or Someday for that matter. Someday seems to be pretty consistent as well. Really the one with the most volatility on this roster is going to be JoJo. So I think a lot comes down on him, on his shoulders, how he performs, how he develops, and then on top of that, I think the other feature is or important aspect to look out for is going to be how the chemistry unfolds and how that develops within the team throughout the split. And that's what's going to determine, again, our form coming into the playoffs is what matters. So yeah, seeing that consistent improvement. So that's just about it for League of Legends. Dota 2. Every time I want to do this, but like that just does not that doesn't look right, does it? Dota spelled Dota 2 like that? It just doesn't. I don't know. It's just not the same. Dota. How about we'll just go with Dota. Um, and then we'll just do major. The LIMA major. Alrighty, let's do this. The LIMA major, baby. So Dota 2, for those who don't keep up, um, they're actually playing their final match today. It does not matter. They're playing Beast Coast, but it's a meaningless. It's not a meaningless game. I think it probably determines some seeding, but it's meaningless in the sense that EG and Beast Coast have already qualified for the Lima major. So this is a major being held in Lima, Peru, um, which is actually pretty significant for this roster because they have 4 players and 5 if you include the coach are all from Peru. So this is a pretty important event for those guys to make it to, and they've made it. They've qualified in pretty dominant fashion. They've qualified for the major, and apparently they're like we talked about last week, they're an exciting team to watch. I just watched the first map or the first game that they played against Beast Coast. They lost, but they apparently they were very strong throughout the first 30 minutes of the game, and then it kind of ran away from them. Beast Coast again, the scaling seems to be a recurring theme amongst the MOBA esports titles this week. But yeah, Beast Coast kind of was able to make the right plays and make the comeback. But EG was very strong for those first 35 minutes or so. Um, yeah, I'm happy with how this team's performing, man. This team looks really good. Um, Super exciting stuff. I'm so glad they're going to the major. I'm so glad they're going to a major that's in their home country. I think that's going to be really great for them. Could potentially, it's weird saying that they're going to be at a major, their home turf after we literally just signed the roster. Beast Coast also has entirely Peruvian players, so yeah, it's big for them as well. The only player who's not Peruvian on EG is Whisper. He is Bolivian. Um, but other than that, yeah, look, even still, a home major for him, right? To be in South America. Um, so yeah, fantastic news. So the major, let's see here, it begins on the 22nd of February. So it's not going to begin for a little bit, um, but yeah, begins on the 22nd of February and ends um, on the 5th of March. So it's not that long. It's not like a TI where it takes a considerable amount of time. This really it's going to take around a week and a half to start and end. So going to be 18 teams. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a big event. Um, we'll watch and see how they perform. Um, I'm trying to look here to see if in North America. So Shopify Rebellion is the old. A lot of players. In fact, I think there's only one difference between Shopify Rebellion and the old EG roster, which is Saberlight is on the team for. Oh, I'm putting myself in a bad situation. I can't think of who he's replacing. Nightfall. Saberlight replaced Nightfall. The Shopify Rebellion roster is the old EG roster. So it's Arteezy, Abed, Saberlight, Crit, Fly, and Bulba as the coach. They are also going to be at this major. I believe they got second place in North America. TSM took first. They're going back to a major. So it's going to be interesting to see if EG and Shopify Rebellion play each other. That's just going to be such a interesting matchup. Lots of obviously history there. Brand new history, but history nonetheless. So yeah, I'm super excited. This is gonna be sick. Um, really looking forward to it. And Yeah, super happy for them that they get to go to their home country for a major. I think that's big, and lots on the line. So we'll see how they do. But super stoked. So yeah, proud of them. All right, let's see here. So let's get the Rocket League stuff out of the way. Let's get it out of the way because this was disappointing news. I won't lie. This was disappointing news. Um, let's see here. EG. So EG have exited Rocket League. I didn't phrase this the best, but you understand what I'm saying. EG have exited Rocket League. They are no longer participating in the European RLCS. Um, Shocking news to me. I had no expectation that this was going to happen. For those who don't know, literally the EU RLCS happened like the matches started like a couple days ago. Um, yeah, crazy. Crazy that they dropped the roster right before the event. That I still don't understand. I think that's fucked. Like if they were not given any type of, because there's a lot that we don't know here. I don't know um, if the players were given prior notice, due notice of the fact that they were not going to be playing under the EG banner during this competition, and they were given an opportunity to look for other organizations. I have no idea, but if they weren't given that opportunity, that's just really shitty business, and that's really shitty from EG. I'm very shocked that they dropped this roster. I can't imagine this was a very expensive roster to hold on to. I understand they were in Germany, but just seems strange to let go of them, especially because it's not like they were a bad roster. They were a very good roster, very talented, very young, um, and a very solid team. Yeah, just really confusing. I don't really understand the decision making process behind this. Again, the only thing that comes to mind is just money. But I don't see with EG being EG and the amount of money they spend in every esport. I don't understand how this is the move that's going to save them money, or resources for that matter. It just I don't see Rocket League as being something that costs a lot of money to be a part of. I mean, maybe it does, and I just don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of details there that I'm unaware of, but just shocking to me that they dropped this roster, a young, talented roster. The players were always great. They always were very nice. Um, when their interactions with people and seemed like just like a really good group of people. And Yeah, I feel bad for them if they really weren't given the opportunity to reach out to other organizations because in this competition they're playing under a quite obviously player. It's just a fake. It's not even an organization. It's just the German Amigos. It's like a little their logo is like a hat with like a mustache. It looks like a sombrero or something. Yeah, just well, it's the colors of the German flag, and then yeah, I just I don't know, really strange to me. I don't really understand why they did this. I especially don't understand why they did this in the time that they did this, like in the moment they did this, because it literally the news broke right before the competition. So look, it's either one of two things. Either they dropped the roster right before and didn't give the players much time to work with, or they dropped them it's considerably beforehand. The players tried to reach out, couldn't get an organization to sign with, um, but were good enough to qualify. And the news is being broke this week because, or last week, I should say, um, because was being broke last week because it's right before the competition starts. I don't know which one it is, but if it's the former, um, it's pretty shitty. That's pretty shitty of EG. And as a nice, you know, fuck you, I guess. I don't know. Again, don't know the situation, but they actually got top four. They actually got top four. They claimed 12 RLCS points so far for what is this spring, I believe. Yeah, or I'm sorry, Winter Open, the Winter Open. Um, so yeah, they got 12 points in the Winter Open, and going to be looking to get more points later on. I'm going to keep tabs on this team because I want to see if they make the major. I want to see if they make the major because that'd be a missed opportunity for EG for sure. And I hope they do well because again, super nice guys from what I could tell. Um, yeah, so I hope that 9K they got from that Winter Open. I hope they get a little bit more of that money than they would have if they were with EG. I hope that's the case. Yeah, so a real shame that EG released the roster. But I'm wishing them all the best. And I hope they continue to do well. I'm going to keep tabs on them personally. I'm not going to talk about them on the podcast anymore, but I'll keep tabs on all the players, including Rizex. I've been keeping tabs on Rizex on Tundra. because I really like RizX, and I really like all these guys. So thank you RizX, Catalysm, Ivan, Tox, Verge. Thank you all for what you did, and hopefully you guys continue to move forward and do great things in the space. Gonna personally keep my eye on them because yeah, just really great people. So other than that, other than that, let's move on to Valorant. Let's move on to Valorant. And what news do we have for Valorant? So, sorry, just there we go. So for Valorant, guess who's joined the roster? ScrewFace. That's his username. No, actually, I've heard of ScrewFace before. He was on Dark Zero. If anyone remembers Dark Zero, they were the roster who, in the tier two space for Valorant, was very strong. A very strong tier two Valorant team for a good long while. Played with players, Screwface played with players like Drone and Zexro. Yeah, just really strong team. Was really strong in the tier two space. And Screwface has now joined EG as their ninth player to join the roster. So yeah, nice news. I think it's a solid pickup. Yeah, not a whole lot to say here, as I don't think he'd be on the main starting roster. But a nice signing, and yeah, we're gonna be looking forward to one more signing before the start of the lock-in tournament, which is going to be happening in roughly 2 to 3 weeks. Um, so yeah, again, the Valorant discussion is really going to pick up once lock-in happens. That's when things are going to be. I'm going to be talking about Valorant quite a bit. I probably, depending on, obviously, it kind of depends on how far they make it in lock-in. Um, but because technically they could lose the first best of three and just be out of the tournament. But even after that, there's a little bit of time gap. But then eventually in March is when the season starts. So we'll see. But in terms of this particular pickup, I think it's a solid pickup. Dark Zero, at least I can't really remember Screwface in particular, but um, you know, uh, Dark Zero was a very strong tier two team. Just looking here, Screwface plays Raze, Jet, and Chamber. Um, so if I look at the roster, Raze, Jet, and Chamber kind of sounds like someone who would step in for Jogamo, potentially Boostio. I know Chambers kind of changed now. He's not nearly the same agent that he used to be. So I'm not really sure how Chamber fits into the meta these days. So I don't know if that's something Boostio would even play, but really I'm thinking of Jogamo and Boostio are the kind of players that play those agents. So we'll see. But yeah, Screwface, solid pickup. I don't mind it, and I don't have like a strong opinion on it or anything, but it's a solid pickup, and we'll see how it goes. He seems to be a pretty funny guy. I've seen him interact with other people on Twitter and whatnot, and he streams, which is great. I think EG needs as much stream exposure as possible to get fans. And Valorant is really going to be an opportunity for Evil Geniuses as an organization to pick up new fans. So hopefully these guys can make a splash, make a name for themselves, and really generate some fans because that would be big for them. So this roster currently, guys, for those who don't know, consists of, and I'm not going to go in starting lineup to potential second team lineup, but I'm just going to mention all the players and the coaches. Boostio, Screwface, Demon One, Ethan, BCJ, Calm, Apoth, Reformed, Jogamo. Those are the players. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. Yep. And then our coaches, head coach Potter, assistant coach is Zix, and assistant coach Lynn, Jimmy Lynn. My bad. Um, yeah, Lynn's been on the team for a while now. Him and Potter have been on the team for a while now. Zix is new, not that new, but new. Um, yeah, looking forward to it, man. I'm excited for this EG team. A lot of people are saying that still gonna be the worst team in America's league. It's like, dude, EG wasn't even that bad. Like the past couple of seasons, like especially last season. Like they were not good at this time last year. They were not good, but the following like split slash season or whatever you want to call it, EG was actually pretty good. They beat Optic Gaming in a best of three. Um, they were solid, man. They were a solid team, and people were kind of sleeping on them. So yeah, I think EG is better than people expect, and I expect them to do well at this event. Although I'm a little hesitant because I don't know anything about Heretics. I have no idea how good this team is. And it's going to be a tough competition. The lock-in is a brutal gauntlet. Any team, I don't care if it's the best team at the event, could lose at any stage at the event. They could literally lose in the first round. It's possible. This shit is going to be like March Madness. It's going to be fucking sick. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, super cool. And yeah, great things happening in Valorant. Um, and yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can think of. Um, so yeah, uh, here's the Counter Strike section. Hey guys, welcome to the Counter Strike portion of the episode. I've got Kurrent here, of course. Joins me once again. Very appreciative for that. And yeah, it was oh geez, eventful week. Was hoping it would be a little bit specifically one match more eventful, but it wasn't, unfortunately. Um, yeah, some news around the scene. Not anything massive. But before we get to the main roster, e.g. Blue, before we talk about the Blast groups, and our thoughts on how the group stage or how Blast groups went, um, I think there's a little bit of news on E.g. White. That I'm gonna try to go through pretty quick here. It's mainly that they went through and they won the Cash Cup. um, they won the ESEA Winter 2023 Cash Cup 1 North America. They played some tough teams in the semis and the final. They played ATK and Nouns. They beat ATK 2-0. They beat Nouns 2-1. Um, and yeah, again, I don't take a whole lot from it other than is Momo doing well, which he is. So that's obviously good to see. Because I think that's really like the next player to kind of look at in terms of like, yeah, to be honest, I don't see any of these other players besides Momo really getting a step up into the main roster. Momo I see a little bit more faith in just because he's a new player. Um, so I think potentially they could move him in. But really, yeah, they beat Nouns, which was good. And then after the game, there was some trash talk or some a little bit of a jab, a passive aggressive tweet from Jonji a little bit. And really, what was interesting about it was not only the response from Stamina, which I'm not gonna mention it, but for personal reasons, but it was a pretty shocking tweet to kind of you don't really know what the reputation is of some of these players is, beyond Twitter sometimes. So just hearing that was a little bit shocking. But mostly it's really Semphis mentioning that, basically saying, this is a pretty disrespectful tweet from you, Jonji. Do you realize how close you were to being cut? Did they tell you how close you were to being cut from EG White? Which, listen, if there's anyone I'm going to believe, it's going to be Semphis. He's been around the scene for so long. Um, so yeah, just a little bit shocking stuff there. Again, it doesn't surprise me, not really, because I honestly do believe they're going to cut most of these players from EG White. I really think Viz, Ponalone, Benleet, Jonji. I mean, look, maybe you keep some, but I think most are going to go in favor of players like Momo and younger talent that is on the rise. I think that's what is going to get, those are the players that are going to get picked up. Um, in the future, and probably some of these older players are going to go away soon. Um, yeah. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that Kurrent. Again, I'm trying to go through it quick just because I'm like, one, it just doesn't matter that much. Uh, it's mainly just interesting just to hear about, I guess, the perception of Jonji within the scene, and then also just the fact that their EG was very close to cutting him. But in terms of the win, it's a great win. It's just it doesn't mean anything because EG White can't play anything outside of North America. So yeah.
Yeah. So for me, the tweet in itself, I don't really care about. Kind of like you said, I don't really care about much that this roster is doing. But I think you make a good point that from an outsider's perspective, as a fan, you really don't know what these guys are like, in say a team scenario, or you know what their perception is within like the actual scene of other players. You don't really know what they're like. You only really get to see. what they're like if they stream on Twitch or whatever they say on Twitter, right? But I'm kind of with you that a lot of these guys will probably end up getting dropped come whenever their contracts are up, I'd reckon. But what would be really interesting to see, I think, would be maybe they just merge black and white together.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe they keep someone like Momo, because I mean, I haven't been watching much of EG Black because again, they're just an ECL. But maybe you kind of just call it quits on Rush and Stan. I mean, they're older
Right.
players. They've probably, I mean, they have a wealth of knowledge, right? But I mean, at a certain point, at what line do you just have them be dropped for some younger guys that you can now fully fledged commit time to? So it'd be interesting to see if maybe Momo goes over, Rush gets dropped. I mean, I've heard nothing on who their new fifth will be.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
nothing.
yeah, so yeah, only time's gonna be able to tell with that one. But I I just don't care about this EG White roster, like at all. I mean, it's cool. They're playing in some cash cups, and they won that one. They had a good game against comeback win against Nouns actually in the bits that I watch on Vertigo. But again, like I don't know. I don't know what to do with these guys. We talk about it every single week
Yeah.
since I've been here at least. Like
It's a recurring theme.
it really is. I mean, until they do something, I'd rather these guys almost just pull a DJ and just either mutually leave and go make their own org again so they at least have the chance to play and have the chance to possibly qualify for like some tournaments. But because
At some
when I
point,
was
when is the resources just not worth it anymore for these
right,
guys? Like at
like
some
what
point,
what are
it's
you
just better
really
to be on
getting
your
out of
own.
this lineup?
Yeah, they're not
From
gaining anything now.
from a EG standpoint, what do you get from this lineup? You don't really get anything besides the name
You're
recognition
just
that
throwing money away,
yeah, I
essentially.
mean, so what? Like someone sees EG White and Cash Cup when they register. Like
Yeah.
besides that, yeah, you don't really get anything out of these guys. I mean, besides Pone's probably the only guy that has the biggest like community outreach, right? And NA with his because he's pretty successful streaming wise for
Hmm.
who he is, his age and everything. But besides that, I mean, you don't really get anything out of this lineup.
Yeah.
Because I think you and I would both love to see them play more, but
Oh
we
yeah.
just can't. We just can't. Honestly, if they went left and created just like a new org or just an unorged team, I'd still watch and I'd still
Oh, I'd
support
be
them.
happy. Yeah, I'd be happy for him. I think that'd be great.
Like,
Yeah.
but I think it's to the point now. And granted, it's only been a week, but I mean, thinking about it more and more, it feels like we're just kind of holding these guys hostage. Like they can't do anything
Yeah.
because uh, the person I talked about earlier with you before we started recording, I won't name him, but he had a good outlook on it, not from being a fan side, right? That we are kind of just stunting these guys and we are holding them hostage, and they can't really do anything about it until they get an offer from another team. Because if you think about it, like that, yeah, they're salaried, so they're at least making money. But from a competitive standpoint, they're not playing. So
No.
unlike how it was for them before, right? They were constantly playing, but money wasn't guaranteed. So now they're in like the reverse situation of money is guaranteed, but playing isn't for whatever reason, which is super weird to think about.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
definitely. But
but yeah, I just keep it short and sweet. I mean, we could rant for hours on what to do with this team like
oh
we
yeah.
typically do, but
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it's at this point it is feeling a little bit hopeless. But yeah, uh, from moving away from EG White, obviously EG Blue, the main roster, played the Blast groups. They had their second week and rematched against Heroic, lost 2-1. I guess we can start there. Um, Heroic removed in terms of the map pool. Heroic removed Anubis. EG removed Vertigo, obviously. Heroic picked Nuke, which shocked me.
yep,
Last week, I predicted that Heroic was going to pick Inferno. I'm still kind of surprised they didn't pick it after seeing just how terrible EG is at Inferno. I still think it's one of their worst maps, even with the win over Complexity, which we'll get to in a bit. I still think that map is absolute dog shit for this team. Very shocked Heroic went with Nuke. They went for an unknown, which again, it's like it's an unknown, but like this team was playing Nuke frequently at
Mhm.
last season. I don't understand why people are saying that like maps like Ancient, maybe Ancient to a little bit of a more reasonable extent, but Nuke is not a surprise. Like
No.
EG does like playing Nuke. EG has beaten Furia on Nuke. It's not like it's a map that they don't enjoy playing or that they're not good at. They haven't shown anything before, and also the the thing of like, oh, you don't know what to expect with EG on Nuke is just kind of like I don't necessarily agree with that. There are things you can watch. Although again, going into this event, I don't think anybody was really hard countering people off of what their playstyles were like last season, because that would just be setting yourself up, hoping that they're doing the same things. Which guess what? Nobody is, including Heroic. Even if they're the best team
Mhm.
in the world, they're not going to be doing the same things. But anyways, Heroic picked Nuke. Didn't go their way. EG won 16-9, pretty dominant fashion. Went to Overpass, which was EG's pick. I was expecting good things. I felt very good after Nuke. And actually, I was thinking very confidently after Nuke because I was like, Overpass and Mirage are both maps that, yeah, Heroic like, but EG is shown to like both of those maps as well, at least last season. And Overpass this season obviously has been their best map, which is a little shocking to say considering they lost 16-2 against Heroic on Overpass. Um, I just, yeah, that's just bad. I don't know. And then Heroic removed Ancient for obvious reasons, I assume. Um, and then EG removed Inferno, obviously, because it was their choice between Inferno and Mirage, and there's no way they would have went with Inferno after how bad their Inferno has been, and they went with Mirage, which is a map they like playing, but it didn't go very well either. They got stomped 16-5. So it started really great. It started really good. It started very promising. But just it's just a recurring theme of just EG when they win a map, it's either close. The Nuke game was the most dominant win they had the entire group stage.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Besides that, the other three maps that they won were very close. Um, so when they win, it's close, and when they lose, it's horrible. It's not even competitive. Um, which I'll kind of there's some stats to back that up that I'll get to after we talk about each series they played. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess we can kind of let's first talk about I guess a little bit to get your thoughts on the overall series, and then we'll kind of break down each map.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think I'm with you. I was kinda shocked that Heroic picked Nuke against us. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if the team was also kinda shocked on that, which is why we probably went with Overpass. In in my head, this is the way I would justify it, is that they probably expected Heroic to pick Inferno, and we might have probably had Nuke loaded in the chamber, but once they picked Nuke, we were kinda like, "Oh, okay, so maybe we can load up here and also put on an Overpass." So, that's probably where we got the Overpass from. And then, yeah, like you said, EG probably did not want to play against them on Inferno again, so they did Mirage left over. I didn't catch much of the Mirage. I was just kind of checking periodically at work because I had some things to do. But I was watching Nuke, and we looked very good.
Yeah,
I mean, the past weeks when when we talked about the heroic match and stuff, like we said, we did look good. I mean, this was a different type of team that we were watching play on Nuke. I don't know why, if you're heroic, you go with another unknown map against us, because I think that's why we beat them last time, is that
yeah,
I
the
wanna
ancient. They
check.
weren't sure about ancient. Yeah, they weren't
Yeah,
sure
they
about
weren't
ancient. They
sure
picked
about
ancient.
Ancient, and they picked Ancient, which
Yeah.
I mean, I granted, it's the first map of the season, and they're really good, like, historically on the
Yeah,
map,
these are maps. These are maps that they're decent at, but it's
but
just
after you lose against us once to an unknown map, you don't know how we play, why go with it twice? Because
right.
this depending on how we play, I mean, we smoked you on your map pick of Nuke because you weren't expecting it. Who's to say that we don't actually perform well on Overpass again? And it's another upset win for us. Obviously, we didn't. We only got 7 maps within the last two, or 7 rounds in the last 2 maps that we played, which is really sad.
It's so bad.
Like we just started so hot on Nuke. I was like, oh man, like we're up in a series for once. It's not.
Yeah,
We're
I
down
thought
oh
we
one.
we
We're
could deal some
clawing back.
damage.
It's like we're in the lead for the series, and I mean we looked good, but besides Overpass, I didn't like I said, I don't know much about the Mirage game and what happened, but Overpass we looked poor. But that's again, I don't think you and I were expecting us to win this,
No.
but it's just our hopes and expectations get so high once we see that nuke game
Yeah.
come out, and we're like, oh wow, we're clicking on like all cylinders. They can't get anything going. I mean, Heroic only got 9 maps against us,
Yeah.
or 9 rounds against
Yeah.
us, but still, I
Yeah. I
mean,
got you.
but yeah. So if you want to get into more map specifics,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of piggybacking off of Nuke. I mean, even the analysts were like, I mean, Heroic's trying everything. It's just not working. EG just had an answer for everything. Um, the T side took a little bit in order to close, but it was fine. You know what I mean? Like, even it was a great It was a great map for them. Like they just played so well. Um, the entire map. It's just it was great. It was great Counter Strike to watch. Good
it was.
rotations. It always felt like EG knew where Heroic was going to try to go next. Even Cadian mentioned in the post game that it just they had he gave credit to the rotations on EG, just saying it felt like every time we hit a site there was multiple people there. There was never a time where we did something where there wasn't a stack. It felt like. Which kind of giving Heroic a taste of their own medicine to some degree. So I thought that map was fantastic. It was just great. Nothing really bad at all, really, to say about it. Um, but Overpass 16-2, the only credit I can even give is that I don't actually think that some of the ideas they had were that bad on T side. I just think it just didn't work out.
Hmm.
Some of the ideas they had in the mid rounding, I think, is something that every analyst and everybody took away from EG's performance at Blast Groups was that in terms of the problem isn't the calling. The problem isn't the ideas that they have in the server. It's the rest of it. Nealon's mid rounding has been great, I think his calling in general this event was fantastic. Which is weird to say considering how bad some of these map losses are. But I'll get to why everything was so bad. After we talk about these series, like I said, I have some stats to go through. But um, this overpass game 16-2 was obviously horrible, but Heroic was just playing so well.
Hmm.
The ideas that EG had were good, but at some point you need to be able to hit kills, and they couldn't do it. And it was very, very bad, very poor overall,
Yeah,
especially
I
for the
mean,
map.
yeah,
That I said that we all agree, and I still probably won't change is their best map.
yeah. No, I'd agree with that. I mean, Cadian was 21-6 for the entire map, if that says anything.
Yeah,
He really kind of powered up on that one. Um, I wonder if Hex kind of gave him some fuel for that.
I'm sure. I'm sure he did.
But I mean, on from a T side perspective, we gave Heroic a lot of map control. We kind of let if you let Heroic get like a team like Heroic get in that kind of groove where they're kind of able to take liberties on their own and do whatever
Yes.
they want, we're gonna lose every single time. I mean, there's times where they already had 2 guys at, like, a fountain,
Yep.
and it's, like, a minute 30 left. Like, what do
Hmm.
we gave up a lot too much map control on the T side of things, in my opinion. We were very B-centric a lot of the times, which I'm not gonna say it was the wrong call, right? Because granted, last time we played Heroic, it actually worked out really well. I can't remember what analyst or caster said it, but I agree that they said, it seems like Heroic changed a little bit in how they were gonna play us on this map, but we didn't.
Yep.
That we kinda just thought we could do it again and not change, like, a whole lot, right? I will shout out Hex, he had a really good, ace clutch.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I was gonna
It was
mention that.
like
Yeah, it was
the
brilliant.
it
Yeah.
was like the 13th round. I thought
It
it
was
was
the
very
second. It was the second
yeah,
round that we won,
yeah, yeah.
and the
Like, ace
last.
clutch out of Hex, even
Yeah,
though, and he's talking shit afterwards,
of
and we're
course.
down,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, we're
2-11 or
down. Yep,
whatever.
it's
But you
bad.
gotta love it, right? But
Yeah,
and it's we can't talk about the CT side because there's only 3 CT sides around,
no,
right?
nothing to really
So
speak of. Yeah,
so you can't really say anything. I think I've seen it a lot on our overpass that we let the T maybe it was just against Heroic, but, on our CT pistols, like, we just get deleted on A site. Like, we let them plant, like, for bank, and then there's, like, 3 or 4 Ts at dumpster and bank on A site, and
yeah,
our B rotators get cut off, and the one guy playing bathrooms gets killed, like, I don't know what's going on with our pistol rounds. I think in general, this whole
atrocious.
group stage they have just not looked good.
No.
Again, not saying the ideas have been bad, but I don't know if it comes down to execution or maybe just the T side pistol call was just the right counter to ours or whatever it may be. But I don't know our pistol stats for this tournament or this little group stage, but I don't think we got many
No.
pistol rounds at all.
Yeah,
So,
it was very poor. Kind of. I guess I'll piggyback on that a little bit and say, yeah, pistols were terrible. We went from being last season or last year being one of the best pistol teams to just absolute trash. And even when we did win pistol rounds, it just felt like the second round we'd lose. We would just immediately lose the force buy on the next round, and it would be worse than losing. It would be worse than losing the pistol round. And then even when we would lose the pistol round, it's not like we would win the second rounds, or the force buys. It felt like almost every force buy we had was just atrocious and would just get absolutely demolished, and then put us in an even bigger hole economically, to the point where we're not even getting a full buy by round 4, round 5. Um, so yeah, that just was not good enough. Cadian did mention in his post game interview for Overpass that he thought the ideas were good. So he even acknowledged the ideas were good. Whether or not that's just him just trying to be like, hey, pity, um, you know, could be very well could be,
it
but
could be, yeah.
very well could be. But I would, I still think it. I know 16-2 is just so brutal, and trust me, it only gets worse the next series. But um, I still don't think Overpasses is like I still feel like it's probably their best map, which tells you how strongly I feel about EG in the future.
Mhm,
But yeah, Mirage was a joke. Mirage was really bad. At first, it was back and forth. Um, it was like 4-3 at some point. It was actually
mhm,
back and forth rounds, and I was thinking if this continues, EG's in a favorable position economically. The CT side, you really can't deal with winning around and losing around and just keeping that back and forth going. It really does some harm to your economy. But
mhm.
eventually, Heroic started winning convincing rounds in a row, which is another thing that EG just cannot do to save their life. They cannot win convincing rounds consecutively.
Nope.
And when you can't do that, when you're playing against an eco and you still lose 3 players, it doesn't matter that you win. You're putting yourself in a horrible position to win consecutive rounds in a row, and that's something that DG just sucks at. They suck at winning consecutive rounds in a row, and you have to win consecutive rounds if you're ever going to build up any type of economy on either side.
Mhm.
And that's something that EG really struggles with. Um, Other than that beginning of the T side on Mirage, it just felt hopeless for the rest of the first half, and then moving into the second half, the CT side started okay. They won the pistol, and things were looking like, listen, it was still hopeless. Like I didn't think they were going to come back and win the map, but I was like, well, at least they're doing the right things to potentially come back into the map. And then Hex got run down on the B bomb site the
Mhm.
round after he screamed, "Oh, I'm glad we get to play more
Yeah.
CS."
Yeah, we get to play more
Um,
CS, yeah.
and then he gets run down on the B bomb site. Fair enough. I will say, Hawkeye had a funny tweet. He mentioned, reminder to all of you, that the playing the B anchor is on Mirage is easily the worst position in the world,
Yep.
which it is. It's just absolute atrocious. It's so bad. But the point is, Mirage was not good. Mirage was terrible. Um, and so yeah, it leaves this map pool in a weird spot. I feel like I have more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Um,
The
and
only answer we really got was that our nuke still does
Our
and
nuke is
can
okay.
be
Yeah, our
good.
nuke is good. Yeah, our nuke is
So we
good.
got that answer.
That's all the yeah. It was like I thought I want to say Overpass is our best map, and I think it is. But still, I like the ideas. It's just God, how many maps are you gonna lose on Overpass so atrociously?
Right.
Um, I don't know. I'm a little iffy now on Overpass. I'm still giving it the benefit of the doubt, but because we
Mhm.
beat a very good team on it, but I don't know. Any more thoughts before we move on to the complexity series or?
No, I mean, like I said, I didn't really get to catch Mirage, but I'm looking at the statistics for it right now, and it's kinda scary that after we go or we get it back to 3-4 while we're on T side, that we don't get another bomb plant for the remaining 8 rounds.
Yes. Yeah, it was
That is
bad. Very bad.
that is a little scary to
As
see.
much as I've said Nealon did a great job calling, this was not one of those maps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
right. Eh, yeah, I don't know. I think it really says something when you can't even get the bomb down on T side. It'd be different if we were getting bombed down and maybe like, you know, Heroic was just having some really good retakes and stuff and we were losing rounds. This sometimes you hear the saying of, "Oh, like the score line doesn't show how close the game really was." This was not one of those
No,
games. This was
no.
just a flat out Heroic was just cleaning up to win the series at this point.
Yep.
I think they just carried that momentum from Overpass and went to Mirage.
Yeah.
Overpass, even though it was 216, I think there's probably some rounds that could have gone either way. Um, we probably still end up losing.
Oh,
It,
definitely.
if we lose those 50-50 type of rounds, maybe it's like 16-8 or something like that.
Yeah.
But Mirage was, from what I heard and was periodically checking in, it just seemed like it was like a cleanup map basically just to finish the series out. So,
Yeah.
but we can move on to complexity for sure because it was the rematch. To say we went 1-1 against the number one team of the world and the first time out this year out, I'll take it. I'll take it. Granted, like you said, the ones that we lose horrifically bad, but we won against them once, so I'll take it for now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I mean, yeah. Again, I'll reiterate. Like this definitely was, in terms of events EG has played over the past, let's see, 2 years or so. Probably the best event they've played, which again, that says everything you
Isn't
need to
saying
know.
much. Yeah,
That's mental. But uh, but yeah, jumping into the complexity series, obviously, I will. I'm not. I'm a man of my word. I mentioned that EG. I thought EG was a better team than Complexity. I thought that EG has been better than Complexity since last season. Complexity, again, I will reiterate, was absolutely atrocious at the end of last season and the beginning of this season. They did not look good at the start of the group stage at Blast. They looked very poor. Um, and I expected EG, after showing good things against Heroic multiple times, to play Complexity, a team that's more their level, and I was hopeful that they would win in the way that I thought they would. I wasn't really sure about Complexity's map pool, but looking at it, there are maps that they both like to play, that made it through. Inferno and Overpass in particular. Um, Anubis got picked. Not something I have no idea how much prep EG has into Anubis. I did not watch that game. I
I
didn't
did
get an
not
opportunity
watch
to. I
that
had a meeting,
either.
so I have no idea if EG was really that bad on Anubis because we look by the end of it, in hindsight, Complexity actually was a pretty good Anubis team, this
Hmm.
event. So I don't know how bad EG's Anubis is. I have no idea. I didn't get to watch the series, that map in particular at all. Um, in
Yeah,
terms of
just
the
looking at the
veto,
stats.
yeah,
Sorry, but looking at the stats, like Anubis seems like we have okay prep on it. Probably not the best, but
yeah,
I'm wondering if Complexity kind of did a surprise pick on us for Anubis.
yeah. I mean, it's a map they like to play, so I think they just went for it because I mean I'm looking here. In terms of the veto, complexity remove Mirage, so that's their permaban.
Mhm.
Sucks for us. That's a map we like to play, even though it wasn't very good. It's a map we still like to play. EG remove Vertigo. Complexity pick Anubis, which I'm looking at the rest of the maps in the pool. It doesn't actually surprise me that much.
Mhm.
Overpass is a map they both like to play, so they're going to leave that in. Ancient made it pretty far, but they're not going to want to pick Ancient after we beat Heroic on Ancient. They removed Nuke later on in the veto. Uh, you know, yeah, I think they went with Anubis because they've actually been playing it. They actually think they're pretty confident on it. And then EG picked Inferno. Shocking. Again, I didn't expect that. I expected Nuke or Ancient or something like that. But
I
they went with Inferno. I understand Complexity's been a terrible Inferno team, but EG
Mhm.
has been so bad that I don't justify them picking it at all. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
in this
they probably
veto,
thought this was like a punish pick, and in our eyes, we're like, "This, yeah, punishing us. Like this is
yeah,
we're not punishing Complexity here."
I was I was a little surprised by that. Yeah, and then Overpass was left over. Doesn't surprise me. Both teams really
Mhm.
like Overpass. Um, Kind of breaking down each map. Obviously, I'm not really going to touch on Anubis because again, we didn't really get to watch it, all that much. I don't really know what to take from it. Um, but Inferno in particular, so they won 16-12. They had a 9-6 T side. I'll remind everyone that the start of that T side was very bad. Very, very bad. It was not good at all. It looked like Complexity was going to run away with things very quickly. Um, it was not good, but they ended up winning the half 9-6, moved into the CT side, and it was very shaky, but they pulled it out in the end. I don't see this as a very redeeming win on the map. I still rate this map terribly. For EG, it's just this. Honest to God, this was like a map of two terrible Inferno teams playing Inferno, and the
Yeah.
slightly
One
less
has to win.
shitty, yeah, the slightly less shitty team won in
Yeah.
that day. Like I don't take anything from that win. I think it was a pretty below average map for both teams, and they even said it was going to be a slugfest, and it ended up being exactly that. And EG ended up on top in the coin flip. I think it could have gone either way, really. Um, and then Overpass. Fuck's sake. 11-4. Like I don't understand how it got so bad. I just don't. Like we were getting destroyed by JT. JT. JT, the worst player on their fucking team. Their in-game leader.
1.43 rating.
I know. Like how the fuck do you get wrecked by JT on Overpass? We made Halzerk look like simple. Like I don't understand how it got so terrible. It was horrible watching this game. It was so bad. Um, Yeah, I mean, just like I'm pulling them up. Yeah, JT, like you said, 1.43 rating. Grim was fantastic. He's been great the whole.
Grim's been killing it. He's
Yeah,
been killing
he's
it.
been doing a fantastic job. Really sticking it to Liquid. Um, 1.4 rating from him. Halzerk 1.2. Mind you, the highest rated player on EG for that series was Neelan with a 1.18. Um, and I'll get to it in a second. There are not many times where an EG player gets over a 1.0 rating. It does not happen very often, especially in this group stage. It
Yeah.
was very poor. And listen, I love Nealon, and he did a decent job, and I think the calling was okay. Could have been better at times, but at some point, like you need players to actually get kills in order for anything that you do to work. Um, yeah, I don't know. Nealon was the only reason they got as many rounds as they did on Overpass. To be completely honest. If it wasn't for Nealon, they wouldn't have gotten probably even 4 rounds. It was pretty bad overall. And like I said, it was just more things of the same. It's more of the same. You can't win rounds in a row. You can't win pistol rounds. When you do win pistol rounds, you're losing the following round, so it doesn't matter, and you get money fucked. Like it's just the same story over and over again. Um, yeah, overall, this is just a really disappointing series from EG. I really thought like this was the series to do it to at least not really to. I mean, look, they were saying on the broadcast, like, what does second in NA even mean? And it's true, it doesn't mean jack shit. But give yourself an opportunity to play Navi, a Navi that looked very shaky, and Complexity proved looked very shaky at this event. Um, Anything's possible, right? Anything's possible, and they couldn't do it. So overall, it left me feeling very disappointed, especially because after Inferno, I felt like there was a pretty good chance that we win the series. I was actually feeling
Mhm.
quite okay, quite good, honestly, going into Overpass because I knew we played bad against Heroic, but I was like, that's Heroic. This is Complexity. Uh, we've fucked up so badly against Heroic. There's no way we'll make the same mistakes. There's no way that we end up showing up in this series worse than we did then. And we'll have time. We have had time to prep for this series a little bit more so than the other matches.
Yep.
We should be in a much better position here on Overpass, and it was not the case at all. Um, so yeah, any your thoughts
Yeah.
for any of
Yeah.
this?
Like I'm with you. I didn't catch the Anubis game. I caught most of the Inferno and then all of the Overpass. Um, in terms of Inferno, again, I don't want to touch on this too long because I'm kind of just right there with you. That it was just it was basically a chicken fight. It was like two poor Inferno teams playing Inferno,
Yeah,
and one has to win at a certain point. I mean, Grim did everything for
he
complexity
was
to try
so
to win
good.
that map. Um, to be fair, I'll shout out Wiz. He had a 1.24 rating
Sorry.
and a win, so I'll shout out Wiz for that one. But
Yeah,
uh, the fact that we won a half starting T side on a particularly tough T sided map I'll take it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, again, like Complexity's not known as like a really good Inferno team or nothing like they're not a Navi Inferno team, right?
Wiz had that great 1v3 as well.
Wiz had a really sick
Yeah.
1v3, but again, I don't take much from this. It's good that we showed that we can at least beat somebody on Inferno. Um, was it convincing? Not in the slightest. This is one of those where it's, 16-12, but it easily could have been 12-16 and we lose, right? Like
Yeah.
it was a coin flip map. We just happened to God decided that we were going to get that one. Overpass, I'm just super disappointed in. Um, I think the casters even said we were just super again, like it seems like we're trying to punish the B site a lot on overpass, which again isn't a bad thing to do. And again, I don't think the calls were poor, but like you said, like you have to get frags at a certain point if you're going to win these rounds. And it seems like we just were not activated at all this game. Like at all. Like Halzerk, for whatever reason, they just stuck Halzerk up in like bathrooms
Yeah.
and said, "Okay, you got A site," and it worked.
Yeah. He literally killed everyone a day, every
Like,
time.
and I'm at a certain point, like he would get one kill at A, and then we would just leave. Like they're like, "Okay, Halzerk's A, we're just gonna leave," and then we run into a four stack on B site. Like,
Yep.
and then like we've said, like Grim's been killing it so far at the start of this year. So you're running into Grim, who's been doing super well. Floppy, who's like this quote unquote savior of NA. Fang, who honestly is like really sharp for his age and how he plays and within this lineup. But when you have JT, who is basically the NA equivalent to like Zeus and Navi, having a 1.43 graded game against you says something. I mean, I'm not trying to knock JT, definitely knocking JT, but like that's probably the best game he's had in his entire life. like
Yeah.
I'm
JT is
just
not
being
a
honest.
fragger at all. Like
He's
he is
not a frag. Like
terrible.
he's known as like a brain guy, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
a Daps almost, right? Like Daps didn't wasn't really known for frags, but he had like really strong calling, which is why he was a good IGL. But the overpass game was just so like it says 16-8, but it felt like a 16-1,
It
like a
really did.
16-0.
Yeah. It felt
Like
bad.
even the rounds we got, I was just still just surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, we would lose 3 rounds, win a T side round, lose 2 rounds, win a round, lose three, win one, lose three, win one. Like on you got to keep that momentum going on the T side, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little more forgiving in the way the economy is for the T side, but when you're not winning consecutively on the T side, that means the CT is just building up this economy. So even if you
Yes.
win 2 rounds in a row, maybe three, they're still buying into the
Hmm.
next and the following, and like it just makes it harder on yourself.
Yeah.
Um, again, like I'll give props to complexity though; they looked really sharp
Yeah. They
for
look good.
all things considered.
Yeah.
Um, I'm unlike you. I'm gonna fucking double down. I still think we're fucking better than complexity. I'm doubling down right now. I like
Oh
like
shit.
I think we are. I think we
I mean,
legitimately
listen. I think
are
as a, I
better
think
than
as a, I think
complexity.
as a, I think as a team, you're right. I mean, I think as a team, especially given this, by the end of this split, or I say split, I was just talking about League of Legends. But at the end of this season, I think EG is going to be a better team than Complexity.
Yeah.
I think they were already that
I think we
personally.
I think we s- I think we still are.
Yeah, I, I,
But
I still think so, but not very. Obviously, it's hard
but
to,
not yeah, it's hard to justify that when you lose to them and lose to them in the way that we did.
Yeah,
Um but yeah, it was a tough watch to say the least. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Maybe the win against Heroic maybe inflated us a little bit, or especially the team, right? Maybe they're like, "Oh, well, we just beat Heroic. We could probably beat anybody on this map." I'm wondering if that's kind of what happened. I don't know. Like Hex wasn't yelling, if that tells you anything
yeah,
about this entire series.
yep,
And if Hex isn't yelling, that tells you right there that either the vibe's not right, the mood isn't good, or they're just not feeling good about what they're doing, what they're playing, how they're playing. I don't know. I mean, Breeze 9-22 on Overpass
jeez, man.
as a connector player, right? I mean, obviously that's not easy playing that position on Overpass, but 9-22
Has
though.
that been Breeze or automatic or both? Have they both been switching back and forth?
I think it depends on the spawns and probably the setup that they're going for.
Yeah.
I think most of the time on T side, Breeze is there.
Oh, okay, on T
On
side, right.
oh,
Okay.
I think T side Breeze is con player. You're right, and then I think CT. I think Audi is the con player.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think
say
I
I was
think
like I
yeah,
can't remember exactly how that setup works. Um,
but I mean,
but yeah, it's
yeah,
just like
you're telling me you're minus 13 after entire map, and you're supposed to be like our guy. You're the last guy standing from the old good EG days. You're going 9-22 on Overpass, like considering it's one of our better maps.
yeah,
Ah, dude, I just don't know. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, to follow up on
I
the statistics, right? Like this is gonna I'm gonna okay. Let me ask you this:
what
Who do you
blow my
think?
mind, excuse me.
Who do you think was the best rated player for EG? I don't know if you've seen these stats, but who do you think was the best rated player for EG this event?
Probably kneeling.
Nealon.
Was he?
No, he was
Oh,
the
I don't
worst.
know.
He was the worst. It was actually
No,
Hexed. It was
no
actually
shit.
Hexed. Hexed was the best rated player at this event. Now, granted, for EG, granted,
What was
they
it like
were
a
all
not point
horrible.
nine nine?
They were all horrible. They were all horrible this event. EG had four of the worst six players at the event. Four of the worst six at the entire event. The only two players who did worse than EG's
Let's
players,
go, boys.
yeah, the only two who were worse was Hampus, who didn't even play the whole event because he had personal issues and had to go back to Sweden or whatever. And
He
then
didn't even play.
yeah, and then Buzz from Astralis, who
Oh
everyone knew
god.
was going to be the worst freaking player at this event before the event even started. Those were
Yeah.
the only two players that were worse than
Oh
four
my
of
god.
EG's players. So it was Nealon was the worst rated player, followed by Automatic, followed by Wiz, and then Breeze. So by the way, they all in terms of their ratings, Nealon had a .82, Automatic .86, Wiz .87, Breeze 0.88. Then there's a slight gap. Nitro did better than Breeze, but worse than Hexed,
Damn,
and then
that's really
Hexed,
saying
and then
something.
Hexed. So terrible, absolutely atrocious. Here's an even more ridiculous stat. That means that the entire EG roster was worse than the following players. They were worse than all of them. All of them were worse than Maxter, the stand-in for NIP. They were all worse than Hooksy on G2. They were worse than Zipnix on Astralis. They were worse than JT on Complexity. They were worse than NPL on Navi. They were worse than all of those players. That is ridiculous. Like first off, just with how much Hooksy has been memed, the fact that all five players from a team can perform worse at an event individually than Hooksy is mental. And I know Hooksy only played a couple maps, but that's just mental. Like nobody could have done better than him individually. Every single one of them every single EG player was below a .90 rating for the event. That is mental. How the fuck did they win four maps and a series against the team against any of these like teams? Like I just don't understand. That's how bad it was. Like this is why when I looked at this was shockingly bad. I didn't
This
expect
is
it to be this
incredible.
bad. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be this bad. I expected them to all be low. I expected them all to be below a 1.0 because I knew they just weren't doing that
Yeah.
well. But I
Right.
wasn't expecting this bad. This is atrocious. This is where I'm sitting there and I'm just like, it doesn't matter how good the ideas are in the mid round. If you have players that are underperforming to this level, it just doesn't matter. You need kills. Like you just have no kills. And I understand the ratings are so low because they're getting destroyed in the games they're losing, and just naturally,
Mhm.
when you're playing a game where you're getting destroyed, your rating is going to go to shit. So it's probably a little bit inflated in that, but guess what? They're the whole reason why they're losing so badly. So I don't have much sympathy for it. Um, and I don't like to bash on uh, Automatic especially because I really like Automatic. He is our best player, but Automatic has been very inconsistent. Not
Mhm.
just for this group stage, even at the end of last season, he was a bit inconsistent. He'll have an amazing game, like that game against Heroic was fantastic, right?
Right.
He was the reason why we won. But like him and Breeze, but we need Breeze and Automatic to be consistently top fragging, and that's another thing EG seriously lacks is we never have a consistent top fragger. There is no time where I am watching EG and I'm going into the next map and I'm like, well, I can't wait to watch, and I'm glad to know that automatic is going to give me 25 a map. It just doesn't happen. Like, you watch some of these other teams, and you can guarantee that these guys are going to get you 20 to 25 kills every single map they
Oh yeah.
play. EG doesn't have that player. The fact that
Nope.
Hext was the highest rated player for the event, considering even Hext thought he let the team down after the event, is incredible. Like, incredible to me that Hext is our highest rated player. When if you would ask me at when the event ended for EG who was the highest rated player, I definitely wouldn't have said Hext, but he
Oh
literally
no, yeah.
was. He literally was the best player rating wise. In terms of opening kills, it's actually a little bit interesting um, because Wiz actually had the highest success rate with opening duels, which was like, again, if you're gonna pick any player to have a success on opening duels, I wouldn't have predicted Wiz because Wiz is a pretty passive opper. Um, but he did. He had the most success. However, he did not have the most attempts. Hex had the most
Oh yeah,
attempts.
no.
Hex definitely had the most attempts, followed by Automatic, I believe. Um, so Hex was still taking the most attempts. He wasn't nearly as successful as Wiz, but he took more attempts, which it doesn't really mean that much, but it was still pretty interesting. The only other interesting stat that I have is that EG, obviously, they were the worst team at the event. They had the worst in every statistical category. Um, their rating was a 0.86. The next lowest rating was NIP with 0.96. So they were a
Mm.
step below everybody else there. And what really amplifies it and lets you see it even more is the kill to death differential. I believe that's what this is.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
gonna be horrible.
for the teams, EG was minus 212. NIP was minus 108. So there was about a over 100 kill difference or death difference
Uh,
between the two worst teams at the event. Mind you, NIP is having stand-in issues and is having problems within their own roster. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
That
just
that one kind of hurts.
that's sad when I can say that this was the best event internationally that they've played in a long time, and that's how
Those
bad
are our
the stats
stats
are.
for it.
Like, that's
Yeah.
how bad the stats are. It is
But
so
again, I
brutal.
think that that amplifies though what you were saying, right? That like you have to get kills to win a lot of
Yep.
these. I mean, you have to get period,
Yeah, and,
right? Like
and, and you know,
if we're minus 100 to the next lowest like poor rated team in like KD as a team,
yeah.
like that really shows as a team we're not fragging out. I would say on the flip side of that, the games we're winning, at least it's showing that we're winning more as a team and not
Oh,
like
yes,
solely
definitely.
on a player, right? Like a old school vitality with like Alex, right? Who was just like shoving Zywoo into the fire and seeing what he came out with. But at least it's showing who we're winning. We're winning as a team. I think probably a lot of them are deflated, like you said, because of the when we lose, we get absolutely fucking stomped. Um, but yeah, that I also for the viewers and you, I want to back up why I said kneeling as my
No, no,
as
no. I listen.
that.
If you had said, if I might have guessed Nealon if I hadn't known the stats. Like, I really would. And again, guys, yeah, Nealon was the worst rated player. It wasn't by fucking much. Like, all the players were terrible. Like, but
Like
go for it.
I think because when Nealon shows up, he shows up like really huge.
Yes,
Like on that nuke game, I
he
think
was
I had it written down.
yeah,
He
very
was like
important.
22 and 10 on CT side,
Yep.
right? Like so I think that kind of altered my thought path there. But um I'll try to pull some positives out of these stats, even though there's not much. Um good for Hex being the
Yeah,
highest rated
I
player
know.
on the
Not what
team.
I thought. What am I supposed to
Shit.
say?
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not
I,
giving me much to
yeah.
work with here.
I
All
think the
right. I
only
mean,
the only positive you could even take is like, well, I guess that just goes to show that the team play is strong. If they're getting,
right.
if
Like,
they're winning,
yeah,
if they've won 4 maps, like, they clearly, when the team play is on point, they look good. So, it's like, we might be a good team, and the
yeah,
ideas might be good, but we need the fragging. That's what we're lacking. And obviously, I expect that to not be this terrible. Hopefully, in
no,
time.
yeah.
If this happens in the play-in at Katowice, you can mark it down
Oh,
now.
bet your ass
We're
we're
not
done.
winning a single map or series, probably, if we perform like this, individually at least. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, those are some. Listen,
Yeah.
I thought EG didn't play well. I thought they lost maps terribly, but the stats were way worse than I thought. Um, and it could very well be because, honestly, when they would get destroyed on a map, I would kind of just mentally move on. I wouldn't really think about the map too much because I'd be focused on the next one. Um, so I'm sure that plays a role, um, but yeah, I mean, 5 players in the bottom. What is this? Bottom 9 or so. That's
Yeah.
pretty rough. Like that's terrible. And don't get me wrong, this isn't new. This isn't new. I guess territory for EG. It's when they play in events like this where they're playing all good teams, all tier 1 caliber teams. This typically happens where they end up just all 5 players are in the in the bottom 10. It usually happens, but I mentioned it as being surprising in this particular event because I do think this was actually one of the better events they've had. Um, you know, in the past like year or two.
Yeah, I agree. I think the things that if we want to move into kind of just the closing overview of Blast and
Yeah.
how this went, I liked what I saw out of Jaden. We said prior to
Yep.
the event starting, we had to see Hex like start to show up
Yeah,
as a
start to improve.
player,
Yeah, and he did. Yeah.
and he definitely has. He's shown up. I like the role that he's in now.
Yep.
He's taking those opening duels. He's kind of entering a lot, right? He's being aggressive. He's being able to do what he wants to do almost. Um, I like the roles overall as a team. I think Nealon is having good calling, but the frags just aren't there, right? Like the calls are there, but actually executing them, getting the frags, getting the kills that we need to just isn't quite yet. Um, I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
Do you think we would have performed better with Cerq in the lineup over Wiz? Let's say
Okay.
let's just say like the role switch happened, right? That like Hext is in this new role, Adi and Breeze are in their new setups, but just straight out sub Cerq in for Wiz. Do you think we perform better?
Yeah. I think that's a fair question. I'd say no. I actually think we would have. I think we performed better with Wiz, and I think the main reason is because I think this change was beneficial from a just the way that EG likes to play and the way that Wiz plays, just his style of opping fits the team better from a team
Yep.
perspective. Obviously, if this was Prime Cerq we were talking about, I would be like, obviously, I want Prime Cerq. I think he would just change the game, right? He could give you openings
I
out
mean,
of
he was.
nowhere, and yeah,
He was
and he
changing the game. Yeah.
yeah, and he would be phenomenal. But considering that this is the Cerq now, who has just looked very inconsistent and hasn't gone for aggressive plays all the time, and frequently will use the rifle, I actually thought Wiz was quite good. He actually surprised me this event in terms
I
of how
agree.
well he performed. Won many clutches, made some mistakes, but it was expected.
Right.
Um, and I actually think with Wiz in the lineup, we performed better. At least from a team perspective, we definitely played better as a team. Um, so yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. I agree with you. I think a lot of people need the reminder that like how you touched on the play style, right?
Yeah,
Cirque is a very or when he was in his prime, a very aggro opera, right?
yeah,
But you have to think the team that made that up was you still had Tarek, you still had Ethan, Breeze was really in his prime, right? He was kicking it. And Stan, who's known to be more of an aggro, like freeform caller in the mid rounds. So if you have all these aggressive type players, it's either going to succeed or not. And when we were doing really well, it was right. So
yeah,
Cirque's aggro plays were working out. I remember times when he's pushing like nuke on ramp with the op with Tarek backing him up, right? But the how the team's play style is now shifted, I think you're right that Wiz does fit into this team style a lot better than Cirque would. It's almost like we were trying to tame like a cheetah or whatever, right? In a cage. Like he almost wanted to make these plays, but he knew that for the team that he was in, it just wasn't the right one. So he's kind of second guessing himself, making the plays that he was making. So that's why he opted for rifle because it's more you have more flexibility and like miss shots. So I agree. I think Wiz, again, we should have done this before the stats, but because the stats don't back any of
no,
this up. But I think Wiz did really well considering that, when we made this announcement that we were making this change, everyone was thinking, "Oh, we're done. Like, who
I
is
thought it
this
was gonna be
guy?"
shit. Yeah,
We honestly had our reserves about it, but I think overall, I think it was a good showing. I'm I know it's just one event,
yeah.
but I'm curious on Breeze's timetable.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because
Yeah, definitely.
obviously, like I touched on before, he's supposed to be him and Tim from a rifling standpoint are supposed to be like our guys.
Yeah.
And it really says something from an org standpoint when you're the only man left standing for 3 years or however long he's
Well,
I
I
mean, if
wonder
you
I wonder when
I
George
mean
takes that spot.
I
Like,
mean, if you include NRG, I mean, even longer than 3 years,
yeah.
right? Like he's the only man left standing from that main core roster. I thought it was I think I heard I forgot who it was. I think Maniac was like, "Oh yeah, Breeze is the last guy in this core," or like Breeze is the core, and like Pimp was like, "Oh, you mean like the last guy? Everybody else is gone." And Maniac was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Everybody else is
Yeah, no, you
gone."
forget about it. Yeah, but it's true. They're all
like
gone.
like they're like all gone. I
Yeah, they're
mean,
all gone.
like Stan's gone, Terry's gone, Ethan's gone. Now Cerq is gone, right?
Yep.
You used to be able to say like, "Oh, you still have Cerq, you still have Breeze, right?" But now Cerq's gone. So how much longer do you think we really give it that Breeze is just gone.
Yeah.
Also, and this is just a completely new reformed EG roster than what we saw get picked up.
Yep.
In my opinion, I probably give them to after Paris, I would say, depending
Yeah.
on how things go.
Yep. I agree.
And just for the fact that I just want to remind people that the Paris major is like a lot closer than we think it is.
Oh, it is very close.
Like the
Yes.
RMR is legitimately next month.
Yeah,
Like
and it's a packed schedule. I mean, there's literally we're getting into Katowice now. After Katowice is oh
Pro
god,
League.
yeah, Pro League. Yeah, Pro League's gonna come up, and then after Pro League's gonna be the RMR or the I'm sure the Showdown's got to fit in somewhere.
Yep.
With all this, right? Because they're going to play in the showdown, mind you. While we're still talking about Blast,
Ooh, the
thought it was.
showdown is actually after the major.
Oh, it's after the major. Okay, gotcha,
Showdown is after major, but
gotcha.
still, right?
Still,
Like we're talking
it's
about
a packed
let's
schedule,
take a
man.
quick look. I mean, we go Katowice playing. Let's say miraculously we make it into Katowice.
Yep.
Then you're in Katowice for a couple weeks. Then after that, you go
You do have a break for you have a break for the ESL Pro League, but
for
there's a
the
lot of events
Amer.
coming up.
So after Katowice, we actually go into the RMR Opens for
Right.
Paris, and then after that, you go into Pro League, and then God can only hope we made it through the RMR Opens, and then we go into the Paris Major, right?
Yep.
So, and then even I am Brazil's like qualifiers are in
Oh,
there
I
too.
forgot
So,
about that too. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is a super packed schedule that we have to try to fit into, and prep time's going to be at a minimum for a
Yep.
lot of this stuff,
Yeah. Most of this prep time is
right?
going to
So,
be probably after this Katowice going into the ESL Pro League groups. That's probably going to be the most
yes,
prep time they're going to get.
but I
Um,
don't think Automatic's probably on a timetable
no, no, no.
considering his
Certainly not.
contract
No.
and his potential,
He's
right?
too valuable to get rid of right now.
I think Breeze's potential is like just as high as Audie's, but
That's
it's
the
just
problem. Yeah.
and I think that was probably the issue with cutting Cirque, right? Like way back when. Like it was just like we know what he can be. So
Yep.
like we just hope he gets there. I mean, I think he has until after Paris. And if he doesn't perform well and we don't perform well after Paris, it would not shock me. Mark my words and your words, because I think you agree that George takes that slot
Yes.
on the main
Yeah.
roster.
I think George is the next prime candidate. And I think if Breeze ends up not performing, I think George is probably taking that spot. Um, Yeah, the only funny thing is obviously they announced that the Blast Spring finals are going to be in Washington D.C. And the joke is there may not even be a North American team at
Yeah, there
Washington
might not be.
D.C.
Everybody's in the
Um,
showdown, so we'll see.
yeah, I mean, Liquid's there, EG's there, Complexity's there, but don't forget there's some of these Brazilian teams are kind of gonna come through, and the showdown's an online event. Anything can happen. So, listen, the
Who
last the
knows?
last
Maybe we're
showdown was a
big.
shit
Maybe
show.
we're big. We're onliners, dude.
Maybe,
We're like
maybe.
Searson, dude. We might just be onliners. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But last showdown was just a series of teams upsetting bigger teams. Um, Liquid very well, as much as people would love to think Liquid's just going to be a lock-in to make that event, they may not make it.
No,
So it's going to be crazy. Incredible to think that we could have because only one team goes through the showdown, so it's going to be crazy to think that we could have a North American event from Blast that isn't going to have a single North American
North
representative
American
at the
team
event.
in it.
That
Yeah.
is insane. At the best case scenario, or at the worst case scenario, I should say, is you're going to support Twists because he's going to be the only goddamn North American player playing in the event.
Yep.
So insane. But yeah, kind of moving into Katowice. We talked about it a little bit last week as well.
Mhm.
But obviously, it's coming up this Wednesday. They play at 7:30, I believe, in the morning. So very early game. Perfect for me, of
6:30 for me
course.
if it makes you feel better.
That's true. Yeah, it's 6:30 for you. 7:30 for me. In the East Coast. Listen, I wake up at fucking 6:30, 7 o'clock anyway, so it works out perfectly for me. But yeah, they're gonna play Fnatic. I think, look, as my outlook on any of this bracket changed, um, I still think EG, like, if I had to be honest, I would just imagine EG just gets, if I had to realistically predict what happens, they lose to Fnatic, and then they go to the lower bracket, and they play either Sprout or OG. If they play Sprout, I don't know, dude. I think they still might lose. I was gonna say they
Yeah.
might win and then play OG and then lose.
Mhm.
But or Fnatic, I guess in theory it could be. But I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's gonna be really difficult, and we're not as lucky as Complexity where we get the easy bracket.
Right.
So yeah, because
I
even if
think I
Complexity
think
loses,
yeah.
they got an easy bracket, but we don't have that luxury. So I think I mean I just think we're probably not gonna make it to the main event.
Yeah, I think the toughest thing about this is gonna be that Fnatic hasn't played yet this year.
No, they
This is
haven't.
Fnatic's first event, so
They can see everything we've done. Yep.
they've gotten a whole extra month's prep time essentially on us and just in general, right? Looking at the maps, and again, like they haven't played this year, but uh we'll probably see Overpass. We'll probably get Punish picked on Inferno, and then maybe Nuke or
Oh,
Mirage slips in there.
it's a best of one.
Oh, word?
Yeah,
Oh,
this one's about yeah. The best of threes I think
ah,
are
shit.
the
Oh, yeah. It's
is
everything
if
else
you
is
win. Yeah, if you win
BO3s.
a best
Yeah.
of one, you have to play a best of three.
Oh, well, it's just wash that. It's a fucking coin flip. We'll probably play
Yeah,
Overpass. We'll probably lose the knife round, start on T side, probably get 4 rounds, and then we're gonna
probably
switch
lose a
to
pistol.
CT, lose the pistol CT. Wiz is gonna have a scout. We're gonna force buy the second round, lose that. Then we're gonna force buy the again, lose that, or maybe we save since we got 4 rounds, and then yeah,
Yeah. The
I don't
only good news in the best of one with Fnatic is again going off of previous map selections for them, which they have actually, they've got a couple. Obviously,
They have a
again, this
pretty
was the
deep
last season.
map pool.
Um, yeah, like this is again stuff from last season, so I don't know how accurate this will be, but I can't imagine it'll change their map pool that much. Um, yeah, we very well are going to get a map that both teams like. It's either going to be most likely Nuke or Overpass. If we go for Inferno, I will be so surprised, and I will be very critical if they get fucking
Yeah,
destroyed on that map.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah,
but
we're
yeah,
gonna we're gonna permaban Vertigo. That's our
yep,
perma.
yep,
They're gonna permaban Ancient,
yep.
and then surely we ban Inferno,
You'd like to think so, yeah. Or Mirage.
and
Well,
then
no, probably not Mirage.
they might ban like they could even think we have too strong of a map on Nuke, and they could
They
ban
might
Nuke
ban Nuke,
maybe,
yeah.
and then we're left with like Overpass, Mirage, and oh, that'd be it.
I think like maybe like Anubis or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Anubis isn't showing up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but we're probably not gonna play Anubis.
we will more than likely see Overpass
Yeah, yep.
or Inferno,
hmm
but we can only hope that the guys are seeing and that they're not also performing well on Inferno.
Yeah, hopefully they obviously I expect them to do some prep work before the play in and to improve their map pool a little bit more. And I understand that a lot of it is they've a lot of times they've said like, oh, we don't have much prep time, and I look, I had sympathy for that last season. I don't have as much sympathy for that this season in the sense that look, the majority of the core is the same. Yes, the roles have changed between Hexed and Automatic. Yes, you had to bring in Wiz pretty late, but like the identity is still the same. Um, if at some point you can't keep using it as an excuse anymore.
Right.
And
Because to
you
be
got to show
fair,
some
these other
consistency.
teams don't have any less prep time than you do.
No, no.
Obviously, beginning of the year, depending on what you play, you have more. But like when you're actually in the tournament itself, you have the same amount of prep time as everybody else, for the most part. I mean, maybe depending on how it played out, you get an extra day or something.
hmm
But
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean,
Talking about Katowice, Um, I thought this got blown way too out of proportion. Pone being listed as a sub for
Oh,
Katowice.
he has
Like
to though, right?
Dust 2 wrote an article. I mean, we filled out the entire
Mm,
10-man, like, sub list, right?
right.
But, Dust 2 wrote an article, everybody was like, "Oh, like, it's his time, like, he's getting his shot," and or like, "Oh, like, about time he got recognition," and stuff like that. Bro, like, listen, like, I'm happy that he got some kind of just bone thrown at him, right? But unless Wiz in between now and Katowice gets hurt, sick, or some other personal issue, Hone is not getting on a plane to go to Katowice. He's just not. Um, I don't know who else was listed, and I hate to say it, but if we had a fifth opper signed on Black, they're probably getting listed over
Yeah, probably.
Pound. Like if it was Junior per se, like he's probably getting listed. Um, I don't know who else was listed as subs. Again, the subs don't really matter unless we're actually flying somebody out, and I doubt we are.
Yeah.
So
I did see one some posts about people asking about um about automatic opping. Please God, no. No.
no,
No.
please,
I
no,
can't take it. Just
anything
stop.
but that.
It's not even like he's that bad at it. It's just dude, he's such a good rifler. Like I
Like
don't want to see him
automatics
do that
high
ever
on
again.
op
Like
versus automatics high on like rifle, right? Like
yeah, I just don't want to see it. I'm glad Vorborg responded to it and said, "No, we're not planning on doing that." Not only because
uh,
I think basically also like saying like automatic doesn't want to do that. Thank God he doesn't because I don't want
well,
him
he
to.
didn't
That
want to
would be
do it on
terrible.
Gen G either. He didn't
No,
want to do it on Gen G. He
no,
just had to do it. It was a
yeah,
classic like NIP situation where Esatag just kind of
yeah,
had to do it.
exactly. Yeah, it's just please no, stop it.
Because I
Don't
can't.
change the roles any more than we already have. Like let's keep it the same and have some consistency.
Yeah, I
And
can't
see if
remember
it
why
works.
he had to opt, but
Yeah.
because I thought they had Kusta.
Yeah, they did, but he was rifling, I think, at the time. He like was
Uh,
opping at first, or I think maybe, and then he switched to
oh,
rifle,
yeah,
and
they did a role switch or something
yeah,
goofy.
yeah.
But
Overall,
no, yeah, I
yeah.
don't.
So
His rifling potentials are so much higher than sticking him on an op.
yeah, definitely,
Now,
definitely.
now I will say the only way I would ever see it happening would be if they wanted to bump George up earlier than they were expecting, and they bumped George in place of Wiz. But I still wouldn't. That's like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
That would be like a 2% chance, or or in like let's say at Katowice, right? Like Wiz couldn't play for whatever reason, and the only sub they had there was either Vorberg or maybe they had somebody on standby, right? Then maybe you throw Adi in the op and whoever they're
Yeah,
standing
if you
just does.
have no choice,
If you
but
have no
it's
choice,
not
Adi
something
will
that
op.
you'd ever want to see.
But it's one thing when the coach says no, anybody that's been following the team or automatic says no, and automatic himself says no. Like it's just not gonna happen.
No.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't.
No.
Like it just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Looking forward to see whoever gets
yeah.
picked up as the op on the EG Black Squad. I really hope it's not
Uh,
Junior, and it's
and
not disrespect to Junior. I just don't
well,
think he's gonna
it
be
won't
ever
be
good enough for tier one.
it won't be productive for anybody
Yeah,
if it's Junior.
I just I don't
Because
trust
Junior's
him at
just
tier
gonna do
one
what he did
anymore.
in the
Like,
Flom. Well, he's just gonna do what he did in Flom Cup. He's gonna smack guys around,
yeah,
but and show that, oh, he's ready for tier one.
yeah,
But then he steps into tier one, and then he gets smacked around, and it's just like you almost feel bad for the guy to the fact of like he can't perform against tier one, right?
yeah,
Like he's in that weird middle ground, kind of like EG White, where they smack around tier two, but then they can't do anything against tier one teams.
yeah.
I hope it's not Junior. Apparently, it's pretty much decided based on what somebody told me, but it's
Hmm,
just not confirmed. I think there's been a couple ideas. I was in somebody's stream today, and I asked them about it. Um, they said that they pretty much know who it's going to be. That
interesting.
streamer did. Granted, they're not in EG, so it
Right.
could just be rumors. But most of the time, the if the community knows it's going to happen, then it typically does because
Yeah,
these players talk to each other, right? So
yeah.
that So do you think? Another question for you: Do you think 20 I think it will change, but 21 in the world is a fair ranking for where we are at? Or do you think it's too high or too low? Surely it's not too low, but
I'd like to hope so. I'm trying to
it,
let's see these teams here.
yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously it might change this upcoming week, right?
um, I
But I
think
think based on who's below us, right? I think it's probably pretty fair.
yeah, I think it's relatively fair. Yeah, yeah, I think it's pretty much where we're at right now. I don't think we're better than, especially once you start getting to like, look, frankly, I mean, Australia's qualified for the fucking for the finals.
Yeah, they
So I
did.
mean, it's like I don't think we're better than Australis. I don't think we're better than. I mean, I haven't seen Bad News Eagles in a long time, but um, yeah, no, I think it's pretty fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fair. I think a lot of people forget how competitive CS is right now, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
I look at the top 15 teams and I'm like, a lot of these teams could beat each other on any given day.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, maybe hero I think it just depends on who shows up that day, right? Kind of going back to
Mhm.
the very first time we beat Heroic, they said Heroic just didn't show up, and I think that's very true still.
Yeah, yeah. My
But like,
goal
yeah,
for this team is to hit top 15. I think is
if
what
we
I
could hit
want.
top 15, I think that'd be very huge. I know Vorberg's always on the
Yeah,
whole.
he's not very particular on rankings, which I understand.
Well, he's on the whole not like set goals
Yeah,
type
he
of
just
thing.
wants to see the improvement, which I agree with. I think that's obviously good, but I think
I
the
think it's
rankings,
bullshit to some extent. I love it, but I
yeah,
also hate it.
it's a very PR answer, but I think it's in the sense of look, if the team improves, the ranking will go up.
And it should,
So
right? They should correlate.
so that's kind of the way that I try to kind of take that.
Mhm.
And so that's why I think when I say a ranking, I mean it more so as I want them to be at the level of a big of an ENCE, an
Right.
NIP, which is a little weird. You know, they're 16th because they've been a little shaky and their roster can't be fucking consistent to save their lives. But um, you know, if you're in that ranking, that means that you're at a place where you're competing with the other teams. Like you're still an underdog, but you can
Yeah.
fight for those matches. And I don't see why EG can't get there, other than really just individuals hitting the level that we need them to hit.
Mhm.
I mean, I think the team play and I think the ideas are good. I just think individually needs to be a little more consistent and stronger just across the board. But but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much everything. Do you have anything
Yeah,
else to?
I would say I think this would be interesting to do. Rate a tournament performance.
Oh
I
yeah,
would give it like I think
it's
since it's
weird
the
though.
first one,
What are we basing this off of? Like, are we relating this to like the team's performance in relation to like
I think how
overall
we perceive it,
internationally,
right?
or just compared to EG's typical performance? You know what I mean? Because like obviously, compared to an international tier one team performance, this is just shit. Like,
Oh, yeah, it's horrible. Yeah,
but you know, in comparison for EG's performance, this is probably like the best performance they've had in years.
that's a fair question.
So
Mhm.
it kind of depends on what we
Yeah,
use
I
as the
mean,
baseline or as the reference point.
baseline is probably gonna be somewhat of a mix, but probably more leaning towards how we've just done in the past. I'd say.
Yeah, like if I'm going like off of a 10 point rating or a 10 point scale,
Mhm.
I'd say maybe a five, maybe a
Yeah, I was gonna
five,
say
best of
5 purely
six.
because it's the first one.
Yeah.
I think we'll be able to look back and be able to say, well, we did better in Blast or we did worse than Blast, right? So
Yeah. And
I don't know.
yeah,
I'd give it like a 5. Maybe also just for the fact we've done a little bit better.
yeah.
I'd give it like a 5,
Mind you, a
5.1.
five for EG is a fucking like that's just god tier. Like that's just the best they've ever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
typically,
Yeah.
guys, these events
Yeah.
ratings are like probably if we do them, it's probably going to be like a fucking three. Like if it's like previous performances they've had, like their performance at the showdown last season, their performance even at the major last season probably would have been like a three or a four. Like,
Mhm.
you know, a lot of these are going to be probably,
On the lower
yeah,
end of
like
stuff.
so putting them at a five is actually like
Like 10 would be
generous.
like winning a fucking tournament if that
Yeah, that'd
ever
be
happened.
mental. Yeah, that'd be mental.
But
Yeah,
like 0 or 1 would be like say bombing out of the major or something like
Yeah,
that,
it would be
right?
just bombing out of an event. Yeah, pretty much.
But what's
Yeah.
so funny is our EG5, which is really good for EG, would be like a G2 like 1. You know
Oh,
what
it'd
I
be
mean?
horrible.
Like
Oh yeah, it'd be
like it'd be
terrible.
so bad.
It'd be
Like
awful.
they're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
incomparable in
If you
that
said that
sense.
G2 had like five of the worst
If
eight
you're telling
players
me
of the
Nico
event,
did not have over a 1.0 rating, I'd say
oh, you'd
Nico
lose your
was like
shit.
sick or injured or like something
Oh,
happened to
you'd
him.
lose your shit. Yeah, it'd be bad. It'd be really bad. But
So I'll ask one more thing.
go for it.
In terms of NA,
Where are we?
where do you think we are? Obviously,
Um,
we just lost the complexity, and I doubled down saying that I still think we are better than
yeah.
I would even triple down and say, "Nah, I'm not
You're
gonna say
not
we're
gonna
better
say they're
than
better
Liquid."
than Liquid, do you?
Nah, nah,
I was
I
gonna
was on a
say that's a little
I
too
was on
far.
I was on a roll there. I was almost about to do it, but I'll double down
Holy
and say we're
shit.
still better than
I mean, I'll
complexity.
admit Liquid played like shit this event, but nah, we definitely are still worse than them. But I mean, I think like um the fan in me would love to put them second.
Mhm.
But I think at the end of the day, we've been reiterating this episode about how EG just can't seem to get individuals to perform, and at the end of the day, Grim is that guy. Like he is just that guy
He is.
for complexity, and that's I think what takes them over the edge in my eyes is just the fact they have a player like Grim who can consistently perform. They've got guys who are inconsistent too. They've got, their Fangs who are very inconsistent. Um, Fang is a very inconsistent player. Floppy to some
He
degree
is.
is inconsistent. He was great that event, at this last event. Cerq isn't particularly amazing, but Grim and JT's a terrible fragger. But Grim just puts this team. He just puts them higher in my eyes. If it
He
wasn't
does.
for Grim, I'd put EG higher than them. I really do think EG is a better team, but Grim has proven at this point that I think he is just
He's
that
their
dude.
star player.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he is just that dude. Like he's the guy where you're playing complexity, you're worried about Grim dropping
you're worried
25 on
about
you.
Green.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whereas with
Out. Yeah.
EG, I'm just like you got two names and it's Brehze and automatic, really automatic more than anyone, and even then, you're not that confident that he's gonna do it. Um,
Nope.
so if that can change though, if they show some of that during Katowice play-ins, I'm willing to immediately hop back on the EG is better than complexity train. I think it's close. I think it's very close, and the only
It
reason
is.
I would put complexity over them is really because of Grim. If it
Yeah.
wasn't for Grim, I probably wouldn't put it. I mean, listen, as of right now, EG still higher ranked than complexity. It's not gonna last for too long, probably after this, standings shit gets. I mean, maybe it will, because I don't know. EG beat Heroic in a best of three, so that might boost
Yeah.
their standings quite a bit. I have no idea. Um, Kind of, I guess, depends on how Katowice play-ins goes, but
That's true. I will give props to Halzerk. He's really taken on the whole NA look as of
oh
late.
yeah, the
I'll
mullet and
give it
everything.
to him.
Yeah,
He's got the
that's been
mullet, the
great.
stash. What? There's that whole like. There's that tweet with him. He had like the trucker hat on too.
Yep.
I'll give it to him. He's almost a he's an American stud almost at this point.
Yeah, he
He's
might as
getting
well.
that Cerq vibe to where people are just gonna say he's an A at a certain point.
Probably, yeah,
But no,
probably.
I think you're right. Grim being that star play for them, I would still say we didn't almost like the reverse of when we beat Heroic, right? Like I think we didn't show up against complexity is kind of what
I
I think.
agree. Yes, I think we played our worst series during that series against. Yeah, so I agree
And
with
I
you.
think if we show up like how we always say, right? Like we have to show up, even though we're like super inconsistent. I think we beat complexity, which is
Yeah,
why I stand and say that we're still better.
yeah.
I think our best beats complexity's best, maybe. Yeah, yeah. If like Breeze and Automatic show up,
I think we're better than complexity. Breeze and automatic
we're a
show up.
super dominant team.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we win.
But
Yeah,
I think it's just gonna come down to getting these guys in form and everyone because when we're all clicking, we're all on the same page, everyone's performing, we're a really good team.
yeah. You just look at
But
that nuke
then
game against Heroic. Yeah,
I mean, it's so fragile to the point though, it's like if one guy's not in it, like it's the whole team kind of suffers and we get stopped,
yeah,
which might have to do with the style of play that we're doing, especially on T side, right? If we're super default heavy mid round calling type of team from what we've seen. So if not everybody is doing their job on a default, then it's probably gonna not go super well for us on the T side. But
yeah.
that's pretty much all I had. I'll say that I don't know if you already did the segment, but these EG jerseys are fucking awesome.
Oh, I actually didn't even talk about them. I didn't even.
Oh,
I
bet.
completely slipped my mind. Yeah, the jerseys are sick. Jerseys are nice.
These are sick.
Can't complain. Um, yeah, probably the best jerseys they've ever had. Um,
I would agree.
at least with the new management. And like the new rebrand and everything. Yeah, definitely the best jerseys they've ever had. And yeah, they're great. So now,
But
if only our
yeah,
team can play to the level of our jerseys, we'll
then
be
we'll be
banging
solid.
out teams in no time. So,
I'm gonna have to email HLTV, dude. We got to get these pictures updated.
oh, I bet they're really old. Yeah,
Hex is still in his
he still
RGB.
hasn't been updated.
Nealon's still
Nealon's
in
in
K23.
K23, yeah, and then the other guys
I
are
mean,
all
hell,
in
I
their
mean,
old
hell.
jerseys.
Well, the new jersey update, I don't expect to be done, right? But
Yeah,
man, you're telling me you have Wiz in the EG jersey, but not Hex,
yeah, it is kind of
not
bad.
even
Yeah,
Nealon.
that is pretty bad. Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's all good.
Hexton and Nealon should definitely have updated profile pictures at this point. Yeah,
I
it's
know,
pretty rough.
but that's all I got.
Yeah. So yeah, guys. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed the little breakdown of Blast and kind of talking about very briefly touching on the Katowice plan. Obviously, like I mentioned before, that's going to be on Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 a.m. Eastern if you're current. And what is that? 4:30 a.m. Eastern at West Coast time. Um, so but best of ones, sure. But actually, they play. Do they play? If they lose, I
I
don't
think we play
know.
same day.
If they lose, do they play same day still? It doesn't
Uh
say. I'm not
oh, it
sure.
doesn't say.
Yeah. So I'm not
I
sure
would
the lower round
assume
one will
so.
happen.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I don't. No, I
I don't think so.
no because
Cause
it's
the.
everything,
Mhm.
but the first round is B. Only the opening matches are BO1. So
Yeah.
it looks like it will go opening round all BO1s, which there are. Holy shit,
There's a lot of them.
there are eight BO1s, but they're doing two streams,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then they're going straight into the upper quarter BO3s.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing all the lower stuff will happen the following day.
So by the end of Wednesday, we'll know four of the teams that have qualified for Katowice.
Yep,
Um,
and then we will find out
and then it
the
seems like
rest.
maybe it's like I don't know if all the games are gonna happen on
And then
on
by
those.
Friday, we'll know who's actually in Katowice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking maybe that lower round one happens on Thursday. Maybe
Hmm.
that's a Thursday thing, and then the
And then
final best
Friday
of
would
threes
be
are
the
on
lower
Friday.
round two. Yep,
Yeah,
that's what I would
that's what
expect.
sounds pretty likely. So at the
And
very
then
least,
they
guys.
go, yeah.
Yeah. So at the very least, guys, we'll see where EG stands on Wednesday. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much everything. Hope you guys enjoyed. Socials, as always, are down below. Timestamps are everywhere, as always. I say as always, as if I've always done timestamps, which I haven't. But I'm doing them from now on, so don't worry, they will be there. Um, and yeah, hopefully a better week this week. Although potentially might only play two best of ones, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thanks.